Hello, this is Brian Macero, and this is my presentation on immigration enforcement and immigrant rights. So, to begin with, we must start with the current state of immigration. And currently in 2025, immigration is a big emphasis that our current administration is having. Immigration has always been a topic of debate in our country, but more recently it has been a big focal point and a lot it has been the heart of a lot of debate recently. Um an article that clearly demonstrates this is one written by the Pew Research Center, which has shown the the stark divide in our country currently. There are a lot of people who are for the current administration's handling of deportation and immigration and immigrants in general. And there's another half that is completely against everything that our administration is doing. And what what is he doing? Well, an article by Christine Frizzell shows how this administration has been taking very extreme measures when it comes to illegal immigration. Deploying the National Guard, for example, in major cities to handle these issues, which can be seen as necessary to some people, but to a lot of people, it's an extreme and it's not supported. But we should first, before we get into the nitty gritty of it, we should first talk about the historical context of immigration. Now, according to Chapter 8 of Who Built America, the first groups of immigrants who immigrated to our country back when it was first founded, in like the 17, well, not in the 1700s. There were Germans and Irish immigrants, and once they arrived, many Americans turned turned a turned a blind eye. Well, not a blind eye. I would say they were seen as inferior. They weren't really accepted into American society. If anything, they were excluded and weren't really respected. And many believe that they just couldn't really gel into American society, that they would never really be Americans. And it shows that even back then, many Americans were against the idea of accepting people from different countries to be a part of American society. And this also applies to Chinese immigrants back in the post-Civil War era, where Chinese immigrants were um, a big part of the workforce that brought about the Industrial Revolution with trains, railroads, factories, and whatnot. Chinese immigrants were a big part of the workforce, and they contributed a lot to American society. But again, Americans didn't accept them. Chinese immigrants were discriminated. Many Americans just weren't for it. They were not for it at all. They, just like today with Hispanic immigrants, because that is the talking point, or they're the main group of immigrants um that are spoken about when it comes to illegal immigration. And these big majority of these immigrants were just like the Chinese immigrants. They contribute to society. They are a big part of the workforce, and they really aren't hurting anybody. But just like back then, Americans, many, no, not all Americans, many Americans are against their inclusion, or don't see them as true Americans, and discriminate them. And this leads me to relevant historical voices. Now, the man on the left is, I'm going to butcher this, J. Hector John de Crevesor. Crevesor. From, there's a passage from Voices of Freedom where it shows, or it shows us the his opinions on immigration, and how he believed that the United States should have been, or should be, regarded, and it should be a society built from people all over the world, and they should, the United States should be a melting pot of people from all over the world. A very inclusive view from the 1700s. His passage was written in 1780. So it was basically right at the beginning of our country, and there's always, and it shows, and this proves that there's always been inclusive minds who are against these very popular negative views on immigrants. So that's important to note. And then there's, on the right, Benjamin Franklin, who is very well known. But he, on the other hand, was not very for immigration, and, well, more notably German immigrants. He believed that they were like pests in a way, like they were ruining the American society, that they couldn't gel into American society, that they would never be able to assimilate into American society, that they were, this is big, ruining the cultural purity, which is a view that a lot of our country today shares when it comes to immigrants from different countries. Many people want American society to be built of people who have been born here, who share the same traits, and it goes to show that these views have been around for hundreds of years, and it's important to know this, because history, knowing these things is important, because the history of our country is important. Now, so that we don't make these same mistakes again. Now, moving on to the Cherokee Nation, they're another voice that are relevant to our topic. They are a group that were removed from the land that they called home, where they were not really hurting anybody. And why is this important? Why are we talking about the Cherokee Nation? Well, how the past connects to the present. The Cherokee Nation were removed from their land that they called home, and it was approved by the government with the Indian Removal Act. and these people were innocent. They really didn't do anything, and they were removed. Now, that connects back to a current day with illegal immigration. Now, sure, it can be argued that the people being deported currently broke the law by entering the country illegally, but I the measures that are being taken to remove them, which can be argued that they shouldn't be removed in the first place, because they, like I've mentioned before, contribute to society. They respect American society. They are only trying to build a better life for themselves and their family, and they're being removed. They're being, and sure, it is justified by the law. It's not unlawful what the current administration is doing, but they are separating families. It is unethical, just like the Indian Removal Act. And I believe that in the future, this period of deportation will be seen in the same light as the Indian Removal Act, which we can all agree was a dark period of our country's history and actions. So that is why I believe that studying history is important, because if we don't, we end up repeating the same mistakes again, which is what I believe this country is doing currently. These are my works site. This is my works cited page with all of the sources that I mentioned, and I would like to thank you for listening and watching my presentation, and goodbye.